Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is Adam Hops of the National Operations Center of Excellence. Really appreciate your interest in the solar eclipse coming up on August 21st. We have a great selection of speakers to discuss different planning that's going on at all sorts of different levels, from marketing to travel estimates, and then what's going on at states and local cities. We're going to get started here in just one moment, let a few more people join, and then we'll begin. Again, this is Adam Hops from the National Operations Center of Excellence. We'll get started in just a moment, and you'll be on mute, and the line will be silent for just about one more minute. Thanks so much. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started with this webinar. My name is Adam Hops. I'm at the National Operations Center of Excellence. The NOCoE has been doing quite a bit of resource building and sharing, mostly sharing around this eclipse. We're trying to coordinate local DOTs, MPOs, state activities, and provide resources to complement all the amazing work that's going on at FHWA and NASA to do the same. And we've been able to provide a couple of webinars like this one in the last year, and are excited to bring you this today to kind of discuss these last-minute preparations now that we are a month out from the solar eclipse. Before I introduce Lori Radow, I wanted to a few ground rules. Everybody's phone will be muted throughout the presentation, but if you have questions, feel free to type them into that question pod in the GoToMeeting area, and we will try to get to as many as we can at the end of the webinar today. And any that we can't get to, we'll try and get back to you within the next week or so. So feel free to use that question area as the webinar goes along, and then we'll start to answer those at the end. The webinar is being recorded, and presentations will be available on the website within the next couple of days. We'll post those up there and shoot you a quick email when they are ready to go so that you can share everything with your colleagues and anybody else who might be interested. So I'll check back with you when we get to the question portion, but I want to start out by introducing Lori Radow, who's been a champion for planning the solar eclipse. She's with FHWA. She's organized all of us in some way, shape, or form into connecting with people, providing resources, and discussing this. So, Lori, I'll turn it over to you.
Adam, thank you very much. Good afternoon. As Adam said, I'm Lori Radow, and I am currently chair of the TRB Standing Committee on Critical Infrastructure Protection. The National Operations Center of Excellence asked me to moderate this session, in part because I'm chair of the committee, but mostly because of the Eclipse Transportation Fact Sheet I wrote when I was at Federal Highway last summer. And let me correct Adam, and for others who may not know, after about 20 years with Federal Highway, I retired in December of 2016, but I have kept my interest up in this because I think this is as we're learning, a once-in-a-lifetime event. So in addition, the center was very graciously hosted the November 2016 Eclipse webinar I organized, and you can find that as well as the other material on their website. And my thanks to Patrick, Steve, Adam, and Jason, all of the center. As I was going to say, and as Adam just mentioned, if you haven't already seen the center's main web page, please do so, because as you can see, they have taken the lead on getting the word out on the Eclipse. And as you will see with this webinar, the center has truly lived up to its name, Operations Excellence. One shameless plug as we start. You'll see Missouri DOT Eclipse information on the website. I've seen the information that the Oregon DOT posted in late June about their plans regarding work zones and over with trucks and other actions. I thought it was great it was out 2 months ahead of the Eclipse. And if your state, your city DOT, whatever, has information, please send it to the center so it can be posted. The more the center gathers and shares, the better for everyone. Your plans, your press releases, other information, and after the event, your after action reports would be great, especially as many other states will need them as they begin their plans for the April 8th, 2024 solar eclipse. Before I introduce the speakers, some upcoming events that may be of interest to you besides the eclipse. At next week's SCOTSA meeting during the planned special events session, Tom Cordy will provide an update to the eclipse and will probably be a bit longer than today's session. If you're at the conference, please plan on joining us at the session, and if you're with a state who has the eclipse heading over you, please come and share your plans. TRB has agreed to 2 eclipse sessions at the TRB 2018 annual meeting. As I was planning one session, Jonathan Upchurch, member of the National Park Service, was also developing a session. We will pair the 2 that we believe offers 2 very different but complementary sessions. Please join us for these sessions. What you're seeing is I'm speaking as Adam has brought up the various transportation websites, and I highly recommend that you share them, make use of them. I was going to start off by saying that while on August 21st, the nation and even the world will focus on the sun and the moon, today we'll focus on some stars, but I realized that was too corny. Yet today's speakers are all stars and who will offer very informative perspectives of what they're doing on the ground to prepare our nation's travelers who have an interest in the eclipse as they go to and from center line to see the eclipse. Now to our speakers. Their bios are very short because I think what they have to say is why you've joined the call. And the more I thought about it, how many of us have ever really prepared for an eclipse? Matt Hebert is the current Assistant Director of Communications for the Missouri DOT. Prior to assuming that responsibility in May 2015, for 3 years he served as MoDOT's Communication Manager. Matt is especially proud of the role he played in the Traveler Information Map, MoDOT's website, and highway safety's advertising campaigns because he believed they saved lives. I think we'll see that in today's presentation as he talks about ASTRO's Public Communications Eclipse Task Force as well as what MoDOT is doing. I want to thank him and all the task force members for taking on the massive effort to develop and share common messages for the eclipse. Everyone I know in transportation wants to make sure people are safe as they travel to and from the eclipse because in the end, we want everyone to have fun on August 21st. Thomas Cordy is currently the Administrator, Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, Illinois Department of Transportation, Transportation Infrastructure Security Section. Tom has served as the administrator of the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for IDOT since July 2002, and in March 2011 assumed additional responsibilities when he became the supervisor of the Transportation Infrastructure Security Section. In addition to serving as chair of the SCOTSA Eclipse Task Force, Tom, which we'll hear more about today, Tom is chair of the Transportation Task Force for the Central United States Earthquake Consortium. In emergencies and disaster response, Tom serves as the primary state emergency operations center liaison to IEAM for IDOT, all critical components, as we'll hear today, as they stand up for the eclipse. The next 3 speakers are people I met at the American Astronomical Society Eclipse Workshop that was held this past April in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm delighted all 3 were able to join us today because I know all 3 are very busy. They offer 3 very valuable perspectives. Brooke Young is the Eclipse manager for the Hopkinsville, Kentucky Parks and Recreation Department. When I spoke with Brooke at the meeting, she shared with me her previous planned special events experience, which included both the Kentucky Derby, a truly complicated event because of the value of the thoroughbreds, and the Chicago Bears, a sports team in one of the nation's premier sports cities. All two major events I think have prepared her well for this upcoming eclipse. The other information Brooke shared is that a key post-eclipse responsibility she has is to provide a report that explains the economic impact the eclipse had on Eclipseville, the name the town has taken on until the eclipse. Michael Zeller developed and continues to manage the Great American Eclipse website. If you haven't had a chance to view it, please do so. With his experience in GIS, Mike works for ERSI, on his own, as a volunteer, he has developed maps that give a very clear picture of the path of the solar orbit with regard to the nation's highways and roads. As we try to answer the question of how many people will drive to the center line, Mike's maps can help us as we try to puzzle out what is a very complicated question to answer. Dave Jones was for 20 years a meteorologist for WRC, the NBC affiliate here in Washington, D.C. With that expertise and background, Dave has spent the last dozen years or so working with NASA to serve as the bridge between science and meteorologists or weather reporters. He'll share with you information about the webinars NASA held on Tuesday to inform the nation's weather and traffic reporters on what to expect on August 21st. These reporters armed with this information, if they haven't already done so, I'm sure will call you and others at Departments of Transportation to learn more about how the eclipse will affect them, local travelers. It's that common message to make sure everyone has the same understanding of what to expect that is critical to help ensure the successful implementation of transportation plans on what can be expected to be a very busy, but I hope exciting day. Before I turn it over to Matt, I must apologize. I will need to leave in the middle of what I know are exciting presentations due to a prior appointment. Thank you. Matt.
Okay. Hey, thank you for that introduction, Lori. And thank you to the National Operations Center of Excellence for letting me speak today and also giving me a platform to get some of our information out to others. Due to a technical problem, Adam will be running my PowerPoint today. So Adam, do you have my thing showing on the screen? Because I can't see it.
We are ready to go.
All right. Okay, go ahead and hit the space bar. You saw the intro page. And what I'm going to do, first I'm going to talk about what Missouri is doing to prepare, what MoDOT is doing to prepare, and then I'm going to pull out and talk about the Transcom Task Force and what we're doing nationally as a team. In Missouri, you should be seeing a map of Missouri that shows the swath of totality. It's going to enter Missouri at 1:06 p.m. on the 21st. It's going to exit about 15 minutes later in our southeast district. We're not really, as you all know, we're not really concerned about the 2 minutes and 30 seconds of darkness as much as we are focused on the up to 1.2 million out-of-state visitors that could be coming to our state. For various reasons, largely geographical, Missouri has been identified as one of the best viewing locations for the eclipse. Now, I've also noticed several other states are laying claim to that. But with our metropolitan areas, our centralized location, and the duration of the totality, we are expecting, you know, anywhere between 500,000 and 1.3 million people to come in and use our roads and bridges. Okay, next slide, Adam. We've been working with other state agencies since December. SEMA, our State Emergency Management Agency, is the overall coordinator of the effort. But we have been interacting with tourism, the National Guard, working very closely with Highway Patrol, our Office of Administration, and others. And even though each agency has a different role, our goals are the same, and that is to keep our citizens and our out-of-state visitors safe for this, once-in-a-lifetime experience. Okay, next slide, Adam. Now, MoDOT's role in this, we're obviously focused on the transportation aspect. So we've been working with our Emergency Operations Center to make sure we are as prepared as possible. And as I was saying to Adam and Lori before this conference call, I think the best thing I could be at this stage is over-prepared. We don't know exactly, since this is a new event, a unique event, we don't know exactly how many people are going to be, coming into our state. So we want to prepare for the best, if you will. So currently, we have already designated, we have 7 districts, 7 transportation districts in Missouri, and we have a district coordinator in each of these areas. They are looking at their immediate resources. This could be personnel, it could be our digital message boards, it could be increased customer service folks. They're looking at all that in relation to the path of totality, our interstates, our work zones, and they're laying the foundation for what's going to be happening on August 21st. We're working very closely with Highway Patrol right now. They were our earliest. MoDOT was really the first Missouri state agency to grab the reins on this, and Highway Patrol has been with us since the beginning. And we're working with them very closely to prepare for not just the 21st, but the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday leading up to it. Missouri has several unique problems, one of which is that Monday the 21st is also the first day all of our colleges and state universities start back. The Sunday before is the last day of the state fair. So we're going to have wide loads on the highway as well during that time. We've been working with the Highway Patrol to plan an increased motorist assist presence all through the weekend, the day of the eclipse and the day after. Our motorist assist, those are the guys in the pickup trucks that if someone runs out of gas or if there's debris in the highway, they can deal with it, which frees up highway patrolmen to do the job they need to do. We're going to have our customer service staff, the folks that answer our 888 number, we're going to have them working through the weekends and be on call to be able to handle any increase in phone calls. We'll also be working with the Highway Patrol to close down rest areas if once they become full during the day of the eclipse, because we're anticipating people to think that it'll be a good idea to stop at a rest area. Well, parking is very limited in those areas, and they will fill up soon. The other thing that we are actually still in progress of working on is our work zone management. We'll kind of touch on this when I get to the national task force, but originally MoDOT was going to close all of our work zones for that day. Just suspend them just for that day. But then we realized it's not just the eclipse day we should be worried about. It's the ramp up and then the exodus afterwards. So we've taken a little bit harder look at that, and we've made some more surgical decisions on what we're going to close for how long and when. Major work zones on interstates and some of our major U.S. routes will be suspended, probably for the whole weekend and certainly the day of and the day after. However, some of the smaller work zones that aren't close to campgrounds or we don't feel will be inundated, they will have just limited operations. We're not going to close them down totally. And we're getting ready to release a map to the media on that, hopefully tomorrow. I've seen previews of it, but I haven't seen the finalized version yet. Okay, next slide, Adam. I'm in the communications area. So one of the things that I can do during this time is external communications to the media, to the public, not just Missouri, but the whole country, on the do's and don'ts of traveling safely before, during, and after the eclipse. And some of our focused external messaging is we're advising people not to stop on the sides of interstates or major highways. We are advising them not to take pictures while they're driving of the eclipse. We're asking them to find a place that already has a staged event. We have literally hundreds across Missouri, hundreds of communities who are having parties and campgrounds set up, and they've got areas blocked off where people can come and enjoy the eclipse safely. We're asking our citizens to find those locations, get there early, stay put, and leave late. One of the things that has emerged from this task force, Oregon DOT has a wonderful slogan that we've adopted, and it is leave early, stay put. Arrive early, stay put, leave late. And I've got to use that in at least paraphrase form several times with the media. The other thing that we're warning people about is to watch out for pedestrian traffic. There will be people who are pulled over on the side of the highway. They will get out of their car. They will have their eclipse glasses on, and they'll be staring up at the sky, right in the line of oncoming traffic. So we are asking people to be extra vigilant about that. We're asking them to have a full tank of gas, not really to prepare for the worst, but to be prepared for any kind of traffic jam or bottleneck that they might encounter on the way. Keep water in the car. It's going to be late August. It may be hot. Make sure you're prepared to be stuck in traffic if need be. And then finally, headlights. We are asking people to turn their headlights on as the darkness kind of creeps in. We don't want them to rely on their automatic headlights, so we are asking them to turn their headlights on when it's that dusk setting so they can see, but also so they can be seen. All right, next slide, Adam. Now you should be seeing two images. One is a sample DMS, our digital message sign, and the one on the right is a social media post. The one on the left is just an illustrative example our designer made that I can show to leadership, so they'd know what some of our Eclipse messages were at kind of the point of contact with the public. We are actually bringing out several of our portable digital message signs to put on our smaller routes, our 2-lane routes, etc., that feed into our larger routes, reminding people of the eclipse, but also giving them driving safety tips, in the actual space that they'll need it while they're driving. Then on the right, you just see a sample of some of the social media tips that we're sharing online on Facebook and Twitter. All of those have to do with some of the tips that I just shared with you. Don't have an eclipse in judgment. They're telling you not to stop on the side of the road. Don't wear your eclipse glasses while you're driving, etc. Basically, a constant restating of those external messages. Next, please, Adam. As Lori mentioned, I'm chairing the AASHTO Transcom Task Force. Transcom is the communications branch of AASHTO, and we have all 14 states on this task force, plus several others who may not be in the direct line of totality, but they're still concerned about the influx and increased movement in traffic through their state. The things the task force are doing, we're sharing communications plans, we're sharing press releases, talking points. Missouri created some stock social media posts that the other states can use. We're sharing our digital message strategies. And what what you saw in this task force is pretty, you can probably guess that we had some states that were way ahead of the curve. Oregon, Wyoming, Illinois, they were already there and in communication with their local media, working with their other state agencies, and really ahead of the issue. Then we had other states that were just getting off the ground. And one of our early goals with this task force was to try to get everyone on the same page, because due to priorities, staffing, and other issues, you know, some of these smaller DOT communications offices, you know, they just needed a little bit of extra support from the states that were already ahead of the game. The task force is also working with other national organizations, and several of which are on this call, I believe. The Meteorologist Society that Dave Jones works with, Federal Highways, we're working with them. We're trying to share information with them. I did a video for Dave's group that he's sharing, and we're basically trying to get, our main focuses are those external safe driving tips out. Okay, next, Adam. Now, the other thing we didn't want to forget was our internal communications, MoDOT employees. Our messaging is a bit different. While we are sharing the safe driving tips that we are with the media and some of the external groups, we're focusing more on the personal health and safety of our employees just as observers of the eclipse. We're reminding them about the Eclipse glasses in our, we have a digital messaging signs that we have internally in our offices. We, of course, have an employee newsletter that we're running regular columns on that deal with Eclipse safety. We're sharing the basic rules of observation. And then, of course, we're just giving them tips on dealing with the heat and staying hydrated during the event. Okay, one more slide. Finally, both internally and externally, we are sharing at least these two links. One is the modot.org/Eclipse page, which has a lot of the information on it that I just shared with you. And the other is the NASA site that is a very comprehensive view of the eclipse, both safety and scientific, that everyone could benefit from. So with that finishes my presentation, and are we waiting for questions, or I can take questions now?
Hey, Matt, we're going to take most questions at the end. One quick question did come up. You mentioned the social media toolkit. Is that available on the modot.org Eclipse page?
It is not, but I can make that available to anyone who needs it.
Great. We'll send that out when we send out some of the presentations, and we'll post it on. And
actually, Adam, I think you've got some of it on your site.
Great. Yeah, I think we have some of it pieced together for sure, but we'll collect something and send it out there. So keep checking the NOCoE site and as well. Thanks so much, Matt. We're gonna probably come back to you for a couple questions at the end, but in the meantime, Tom, will turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Lori, and thanks the National Operations Center for this chance to present what we've been doing here in the state of Illinois. I was so duly elected itself to be the chair of the Transportation Task Force for this, which is, I appreciated that. And on our first conference call, which was June 23rd, we set out and talked about incident action planning all the way through, you know, talking even about evacuation and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a PowerPoint presentation. Adam, I think I'm in the same boat. I don't have the, do you receive my PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, let me pull it up here real quick.
Thank you. But what we've done in the state of Illinois, we started at the beginning of this year, back in January, actually putting things together. And back in April, we started doing what was called a Cub, not just Chicago Cubs, which we newly are happy about and stuff. But we call it a Commander's Update Briefing, and every 2 weeks we will pull together our counties that are going to be impacted by it, our districts that are going to be impacted, and state agencies, local agencies, emergency management, and so forth. Everybody has a chance to talk about what's going to come forward to us. So on the second slide, we know the Eclipse and stuff, it's going to be a part of this on August 21st. It is stretched from Salem, Oregon, all the way across to Charleston, South Carolina. Next slide. With that and stuff, what we did is we set out and we said, okay, this is something that we've never planned for before. And then somebody says, well, let's treat it as an event, okay, like a national event or a special event. Well, that's good if you are looking at a fixed location and a peripheral around there. But when you're talking about a statewide event, it was kind of hard to put a plan together for that. So we said, what would we do if we had to deal with a statewide incident, say a catastrophic earthquake or some type of event that would impact several counties? So we set forth a planning criteria that we said we need to determine the concerns, determine the likeliness of the concerns, determine potential impact of the concerns, and then determine the possible methods of addressing those concerns. Next slide. So what we did is, on our state, we went forward and said, okay, let's go out of the Eclipse area and stuff. Let's look at statewide concerns. Vehicle crashes. We know in the state of Illinois and like Missouri, they're going to get a lot of the darkness over them for a while. We're going to get actually 2 minutes and 44 seconds. We get to be a total eclipse over an area which is between Makanda and Carbondale, Illinois, down in southern Illinois. But the entire state of Illinois, from the Chicago region down to the southern part, is actually going to be in 90% of the eclipse. So we started talking about what happened if we had the vehicle crashes, vehicles stopping on roadways, not only in the 18 southern counties that are going to be fully underneath the total path of the eclipse, but what about other areas like Peoria and Chicago and Quad Cities? So we started talking about that as well. Congestion on our highways, distracted drivers, weather conditions. Everybody said, well, it might be raining that day and it might be fully clouded and everything else. Well, that could be a challenge for us as well, because if there's a break in the clouds, everybody might start trying to migrate towards that opening so they can get a view. So we kind of figured the best day would probably be a nice, warm, sunny day, maybe 82 degrees, no clouds and stuff, so everybody can view from a safety point of view, and then move on about their daily activities. So we started talking about that. Rest areas, we had a large talk about that and concerns about closing the rest areas or keeping them open. There will be no camping in our rest areas. We don't allow camping in them. Usually 12 hours is a maximum for our rest areas, so we started talking about it as well in operations with the state police. And of course the eye damage, like Missouri was talking about, and I was talking about eye damage, not only for our personnel, but for the motoring public and communications to get that out to them. So next slide. Sorry, I missed my place here. It's on your, is it popped up? Okay, there it is. It's the, I'm into the, at top, Adam, Southern Illinois base concerns. It's the fifth slide. Okay, there it is. We talked about the statewide concern, and we talked about actually in the Southern Illinois what the concern might be, and then we started talking about additional traffic and population due to the event. Like all of us that are in that path, we know that we're going to get an influx of a lot of amount of people. On our June 23rd call that we talked about, I was talking to Oregon, and if Oregon's on the line and stuff, I appreciate it, because when we started talking, you started talking about people coming down from Canada, people coming up from California. You were going to get an influx of, I think you said 2.5 to 3 million people and stuff anywhere in your area. So that got us thinking and stuff, how many people are going to be available in Southern Illinois in each of the counties that you typically, some of our counties are so rural, they only have like 3,000 people in the county that live there. So we started talking about the additional traffic and population due to The higher likelihood of statewide concerns due to the eclipse from length of the event, festivals, fairs, Nassau, Harley-Davidson. We even got what's called Moonstock now. It's a place between Marion, Illinois and Carbondale, Illinois, a little town of Carterville. Right north of Carterville is a place called Walker's Bluff, and they have venues there. Well, we have the privilege of having Ozzy Osbourne come in and do a concert for us. At that time, they detailed that at Moonstock, so there was a lot of preparedness planning there, a lot of ingress and egress traffic management there, and also a lot of issues with possible concerns of some type of event that would cause mass casualty as well. So we put those plans in place. We'll talk about those in a little bit. Communications problems. We've talked to our cellular people. We've talked to Verizon and we talked to AT&T and those Sprint, and asked them about, because everybody's going to be out there, hopefully not stopping on our roadways, getting out and taking their phone and trying to video, which we know they will do this, and we asked them about the cellular, how it would be, and we have been told that they say that they'll be able to, they're making preparations to handle this influx of data that they're going to be receiving as well. And of course, staffing. What we did for staffing is for our districts that are in that area, we allowed no vacation time for field operations personnel, so that we needed them on site in the different areas that we'd be tasked to man. Next slide. So the possible method of addressing these concerns from the transportation side was public service announcements. You heard Matt talk about the Transcom, the Transportation Communications, and their team, what they've done, and they've been all working together to provide mostly the same type of message throughout. And so what we're going to put on our DMS, or dynamic message boards, what we're going to put out on our websites, we're going to put out to our social media, and that's been a very good mix and a very good coordinated coalition there to provide the public service announcements. Message boards, we're going to do the same thing. We're not going to do anything special. Ours don't receive pictures or anything that we're going to put out there, but we're going to utilize our message boards for, no stopping on the side of the roadways. Please keep moving and so, and be alert, be aware. Construction and lane closures, there's been a very, very large discussion about construction, because one of the messages came out that says all constructions will be, lanes will be, no lanes will be closed and everything will be open. Well, when you're talking that, are you talking just under the Eclipse, or are you talking statewide? Because when you're talking statewide, we're talking 90%, coverage. Then you're talking all the way, to northern Illinois as well. So what they have defined is certain routes that have a large AADT now through the southern corridor down there. The average annual daily traffic is up. They'll be looking at the construction in those areas, and then looking at making sure that there's no road closures or there is no lane closures in those certain specific routes that we talk about. We have the traffic operations managers ready to deploy. They'll be on call. Roving patrols. In Chicago, we have emergency traffic patrol that are 24/7. They're called the Minutemen. In our East St. Louis metro area, in the St. Louis area there, we have what's called EPVs, which are emergency patrol vehicles. They're 24/7. We do not have them anywhere else in the state, but we have been talking to the 2 districts in southern Illinois that will be involved here, and we're talking about doing roving patrols for them, since they're out from their maintenance yards anyway during the day. Have them out there on just that Monday, August the 21st, doing roving patrols, assisting motorists if they need it and stuff, and then moving, helping them move to the side of the roadway, or if an issue happens and stuff, then they'll be right there to assist. And then, of course, allocation of other statewide district resources. We have the other districts in the state. We've got 9 districts. The other 7 are on call, on alert, to provide resources if we need them moving to the south on that weekend, that day. Next slide talks about coordination. Again, the conference calls we've been doing, the commanders update briefings, meetings with districts in the total eclipse path. What they have set out, what we formed here is what we've we're sending our State Unified Area Command down to Mount Vernon, Illinois, which is right outside the total eclipse of the path. But they're going to be operational from that Friday, August the 18th, about 10 o'clock in the morning, all the way through August the 22nd for demobilization if nothing occurs, nothing major occurs in there. So they're going to have a 4-day window to a 5-day window to be operational out of that State Unified Area Command. We also have set forward a Northern Area Command, which will be in Fairview Heights, right outside the St. Louis, East St. Louis area, for counties that are likened in the northern area. And then we have a Southern Area Command, which is in Marion, Illinois, that will take care of the southern counties. And why they are set like this is for is we're planning this, as you know, I said it's kind of hard to plan for something that you haven't planned for before, but we're taking this as a large flooding incident per se. We've got our Unified Area Command in place. We have other incident commands in place, and the counties, the emergency management directors or coordinators from those counties, they are likened to that Northern Area Command or Southern Area Command, so they can provide resources, or they can provide requests or information to those commands, and then that command can send it through to the State Unified Area Command, which in turn then the State Emergency Operations Center will also be activated for those days. So that pathway there, that 360-degree moving information from the field to the state and then back out to the field stuff will be in place. At that time, like I said, they'll be doing actually every 4 hours, they'll be actually informing and pushing information forward if nothing else occurs. They will be doing an upbrief every 4 hours as they go through that weekend. Now, these will not be operational 24/7. On the day, on Friday, it's an 8-hour period from like 10 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. On Saturday and Sunday, it sets out a 14-hour period. So we're talking in the morning time from 6 a.m. to about, I'd say, 8 o'clock at night, I believe that was what? Yeah, 6 to 8 each day. And then on the day of the total eclipse, it's going to go from 6 to 6 on that day. So we'll have them operational, and we've got people that are already staffed and managed towards each of those 3 areas that we're going to have set in the field. We've been passing all this information that we do from the briefings that we have through communications transmission at the state. We pass that forward to all the districts in the state, not just the ones that are under the path, and so we want to make sure that they're aware of everything that's going on as well. We've been in coordination with law enforcement, of course, for our traffic management, natural resources for our waterways. We've also been in contact with our partners on the rail side. It's our Illinois Commerce Commission, and we're talking to them. A lot of rail traffic moves through southern Illinois through the Carbondale area, and we're talking to them about are they going to do any restrictions on the amount of freight train traffic that's moving through that area? Because if something happens and they block the roadways, and then we have a certain incident beside that, and they've got a roadway block, how do we deal with that? So we have a concern, and so we're talking to our rail people about that as also. Emergency Management Agency, of course, they're the lead. They're the ones that are putting the incidents together and having the meetings every 2 weeks for us. Tow truck operators, we work great with them in our traffic incident management planning and stuff. We've talked to them on standby in the 18 southern counties to be aware, and we involve them. County highway officials, in case we have to move detours or arterial routes off of our roadways, we're talking to them, and if they have to move from their area, because of course, as a state transportation, we're concerned about our state-owned and maintained routes, federal routes, interstates. We also have to be concerned about the county highway also, because there's going to be a lot of traffic on theirs and municipals as well. We talked about communications and mobile operations. That was the 3 that I was talking about. And we also went into evacuation planning because in the Southern Illinois, in the Carbondale area, we have Southern Illinois University. They're expecting an influx of 30 to 50,000 more people on site. And they have actually pulled out their evacuation plan if anything happens during that time frame, how they would move mass population from an area in different quadrants, and we've been working with them as well. for that, for evacuation planning for larger metropolitan areas and the universities. Next slide. We set forward a mission as for us when we go forward. The mission of the state of Illinois will engage in preparedness and pre-planning activities immediately to address risk, vulnerabilities, and the consequences of incidents during the period August 18th through the 22nd, 2017. Next slide. Our execution, our intent is to direct a multi-jurisdictional, multi-authority collaborative preparedness effort necessary to prepare for events associated with the 2017 solar eclipse in an effort to reduce the potential for injuries and fatalities and increase the delivery of life-essential or critical services. Next slide. Our structure is 4 command and control locations we talked about, Emergency Operations Center and the 3 in the southern part of Illinois. They are maintained, they are established to maintain situational awareness, address resource requests, and provide timely response to event-specific incidents. Next slide. State agency authority, of course, is the Emergency Management Agency, Department of Transportation, State Police, Secretary of State Police. They have our bomb squads. We work with them and stuff for our large gatherings of personnel. They'll be in the area. Public health, because of heat-related issues or any type of public health issue that might have come to place, and so we're talking with them. Natural resources, again, National Guard. They'll be in their armories on call if needed. The Commerce Commission for the rail, State Fire Marshal, and then, of course, our data collection of our innovation and technology and making sure that our data is moving as well. Next slide. We have a very robust mutual aid authority, mutual aid system in the state of Illinois. We have an Illinois Emergency Services Management Association that is in contact and coordinated with all 102 county emergency management directors or coordinators. So we can reach out to them to see if anybody in the emergency management world is needing any assistance. We have an Illinois law enforcement alarm system. That's the law enforcement arm of our mutual aid that all law enforcement agencies in the state, or I should say almost all law enforcement agencies, are into them. So if the state police are having issues and they need more personnel and stuff, we can call on the ILEAS and stuff to bring additional officers to bear. We have a mutual aid box alarm system, which is called MAVIS, and so that's our fire side, and we have a robust system throughout the state of Illinois that we can call on our mutual aid box alarm for our fire services and emergency services. Of course, the American Red Cross has been involved with us for sheltering and cooling centers. We've been talking to them and setting up locations throughout the state of Illinois for those. And then, of course, in coordination with our National Weather Service, keeping them, helping us keep abreast of what the weather is coming in. Next slide. Our civil considerations is, we know we're going to get a lot of influx of people underneath that solar eclipse like other states are. There's a lot of cultural following that's going to be coming through. We've heard that we've got eclipse observers will travel from greater. We got people from New Zealand coming in. We got people from Australia coming in. They're actually, renting up hotel rooms, and all the hotel rooms in Southern Illinois are gone. So if you're coming over for the 20th and 21st, we're sold out in the southern part of Illinois. All of our state parks, tent facilities are taken. A lot of rural areas, farmers in the rural part and so like that are actually renting out part of their farm fields, tents. So we're going to have many observers and traveling and stuff, and a lot of them will be without planned lodging, and they just might show up. So that's one of our considerations. Many observers will attend eclipse-related events as well. Like I said, that whole weekend, starting on Friday, I've got a list of just everything that's going on in those 18 counties. Some have festivals. Some have a all-day swim party on the 21st in one of the largest metropolitan areas down there. A lot of things going on. We have Harley-Davidson riders. It's their day and stuff like that. They're coming in for one day as well to be there. So, and I like the, in the peripheral of all this, some of the municipalities that just outside the total eclipse, they're actually putting messages out there that they want the people to come to their communities. They want the people in there because of the economic benefit that it's going to cause and stuff for them. But I like their slogan is, come stay with us, enjoy the weekend, and on Monday, head south. So they want them there, but then on Monday, they want them out. They want them to go down to the total eclipse. So we had a little bit of concern about that, but we understand why, what they're doing there. So so they're going to come in for these events. All the wineries and everything down in Southern Illinois are also and stuff in that as well. I guess next slide.
Why he call me back? I told him. Whatever.
Okay, on the assumptions, unvalidated attendance. We're looking at, when we say unvalidated attendance, are the we've heard through law enforcement that there could be some doomsdayers that could be involved as well. So we're looking at that issues from the domestic terrorism side. Lodging in the area, capacity, we know that they might be falling out of there. Interruptions in responder and public communications. We're looking at the assumption that primary, secondary, and tertiary roadways will be blocked due to the viewing. So an emergency response will be delayed. Say if someone has a medical condition and here comes the ambulance and they can't get through, and we have an issue as well. So we're looking at our public health, Red Cross, and our MABUS units and stuff for their assistance. And then again, of course, the public health and medical services will be stressed because if this happens to be a day where it has been here in the Midwest here for the last couple of weeks has been unbearably hot, and we've had heat indexes of 115 degrees, 107, 108, 115 degrees. We've taken that into account as well. Next slide. More assumptions: the sheltering, cooling centers, and general humanitarian aid relief will be stressed. The mutual aid will be required. Acts of civil disobedience will occur. Increase in population events. Again, the possibility of severe weather is another assumption, and again, extremely hot and humid weather pattern. Next slide. Threat of earthquake in the central Midwest here. We have a large earthquake zone. We have a northern, central, and southern leg of the New Madrid, and it hasn't moved since 1811, 1812 in the fashion of an 8.1 or greater. Hope that never happens. We have plans in place for that catastrophic earthquake, but we do not need that at any time, but we sure don't need that on the day of August the 21st. So we have to actually look at that as well and hold our plans close in case something like that happens. Public information education is required for the safety considerations. That's number one. Like Matt was talking about Missouri. Don't get out of your car, put your glasses on, and not be aware of where you're at and walk out in the middle of traffic and in a semi decides it's coming down the roadway that doesn't care about the eclipse. I think that's one of our biggest concerns when we did the conference call on June 23rd. What the biggest concern was traffic management and people stopping on our roadway. And what do you do with oversized loads that are coming through? Do you restrict them for the weekend? Do you restrict them for that day? Do you let them go? Super loads, of course, they don't move on the weekends and through Illinois. But then we had a concern about that, and we're trying to push that out to the trucking firms, the American Truckers Association, the Illinois Truckers Association, and the Midwest Truckers Association about we're not restricting them, but just to be very aware. People could be stopping on the sides of the roadways, which they're not supposed to, but they might and stuff. So that's a concern there and the assumption that we thought that they're going to be there. So crisis communications is required to ensure adequate and timely hazard. That's why I talked about that data collection. So we're working with our IT section to make sure that we can push that information out in a timely fashion. Next slide. The concept of operations. Preparedness efforts will incorporate coordination with state police and local officials. Identify primary and secondary routes for movement throughout the area of operation to municipalities. Ingress, egress for emergency response vehicles. Identify signage necessary to inform the motoring public. Identify the issues and concerns preventing effective response and recovery. Next slide. Concept of operations, continue to determine resource locations and allocations to support extended operations, mobile emergency operations centers that we talked about there, those four that we're putting in place, or three we're putting in place. Identify key personnel for command structure. We've done that, staffed them, and we've had a secondary and a tertiary to put that command structure in place. Identify traffic management personnel, roving patrols, as we talked about. Coordinate public information and messaging with the State Emergency Operations Center, or one talking one language from that PIO, from that Emergency Operations Center, and coordinating the movement of the oversized loads with the trucking agency I just talked about. Next slide. I got about 2 more slides or 3 more slides. Sustainment. Agencies, we have told them that agencies must be prepared to notify, activate, deploy, coordinate, implement mission, sustain resources to include potential for a 24/7 operation. Even though we're down and we say you're going to be there for 14 hours, it might turn into something longer. Resources deployed to forward operation elements should be prepared to have resources backfilled, self-sustained for a period of 72 hours, and live off the economy in assigned areas of operations. So they're going to be there just like we would do for any type of emergency. And like I talked about before, liking it to a flooding event, we always say be self-sustained for the period of 72 hours. So we're doing the same thing, nothing different for this one as well. The next slide is a demobilization. From everybody who brings the resources to it, it's the responsibility of the owner agency from point of departure to point of arrival of home base. You put something down there, you really got to take it back with you. We don't need to leave anything left, as they say, just footprints into Southern Illinois. The next slide, we talked about training and exercising. Our training meetings conducted by the State Emergency Management. We did that on a monthly basis, and we do it at the regional coordinators are doing that in the regions in Southern Illinois with the municipalities and the counties. Tabletop exercises are supposed to take place yesterday and today, but we've had a lot of rain in the northern part of Illinois, Chicago, and the Quad Cities, and they've postponed that tabletop exercise until August the 7th, since the State Emergency Operation was activated for those floods. So we will stand up our Unified Area Command in conjunction. We were going to do it with the Byron NOCoE facility exercise, but we also put the NOCoE facility exercise partially on hold, our response, until later on this year because of the flooding that happened. So, Lori, I'll have to change that slide for next week. So, and that's what I have there. So.
Tom, thank you so much. We really appreciate all the information coming out of Illinois and all the good work that's being done there. So we're gonna move on to Brooke Young from Hopkinsville or Eclipseville for our next presentation. We have about 35 minutes left and 3 speakers. It'll be Brooke first, and then we'll hear from Michael Zeiler of Great American Eclipse, and then Dave Jones from Storm Center and all the work that they're doing.
I'm sorry, Adam, this is Tom Cordy. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to jump out for about 15 minutes, but I'll be back. I got to run into another meeting.
Great, thanks, Tom. If we have any questions, we'll look forward to asking.
Okay, yeah, please, I'll be right back. Thank you.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Perfectly.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Sure can.
Okay, perfect. Well, hello from Eclipseville. We are making significant plans daily, and they're rolling along, as everyone mentioned. We are minimize this here. So here in Hopkinsville, we are expecting about 100,000 people that will be coming to our community. And right now, Hopkinsville is a population of about 32,000 people within our city limits and about 70,000 within our county. So within Christian County, we have a very expansive land mass. So we are very agriculture focused, and we have a lot of farmland here. So we're essentially going to be doubling that population on Eclipse weekend. So these are some of the things that we have informed our residents of what to expect on Eclipse weekend. Definitely an increase in traffic on our streets, restaurants, and in our stores. So preparing all of our business owners for the influx of visitors that will be coming to our community. Our schools here locally have actually canceled school on August 21st, and they just made a decision to cancel school on August 22nd as well, in anticipation of the influx of visitors coming and really that uncertainty of knowing when they're going to be leaving the community. So in the event that they do come and stay for longer, we want to make sure we're able to have our students get to and from school in a uniform fashion. So we will actually resume school on that following Wednesday. On Eclipse Day, we actually won't be closing any roads down in our entire community, and we get that question a lot, if we're going to be closing roads down or having any contraflow, and we're not going to be doing either of those just because we want to make sure our visitors can get to and from where they're heading in the best fashion possible. So we're actually just going to be beefing up all of our law enforcement and our signage and our directional information that we're putting out there, and also using radio communication to help folks get to and from where they're going. So again, you'll see additional law enforcement presence throughout the community. We're really working closely with all of those agencies on how to best get folks around our community, and then additional signage throughout the community as well. So we have some committees that have been meeting diligently over the last year. The first is transportation and safety, and so we are working closely with all of the experts in the field here locally, all of our law enforcement, police, fire, sheriff, EMS, our emergency management director. All of these organizations come together and talk about every other week on any updates and improvements, and now we're meeting more frequently as we put out all of these maps and information to the public about how we're going to direct people into the community. And so this information is uniform across all channels of communication, so that all of our visitors and residents are aware of what's happening, and no one is taken by surprise by any of these ways that we're kind of just directing people. If they're used to turning in a certain area and we're directing them to a different spot to enter a venue, we want to make sure they're aware of that. So we won't be closing roads. We're just going to kind of use our officers to direct folks. We also will be utilizing the traffic lights and designated areas, turning those with keys to make sure we can keep lights green in certain areas if there's a long stretch of road that usually could get backed up easily, making sure we can get folks through. We are also utilizing a shuttle service throughout the weekend, so Friday through Sunday we'll be allowing folks to hop on and off of our shuttles to kind of cut down on the number of cars around the community, so people will have the ability to take shuttles to different locations from where they're staying in the community. And then again, an increased presence of officers stationed throughout the community. We're tripling and in some places quadrupling the number of law enforcement officers we have throughout our community. Also bringing in resources from the Kentucky State Police and working on a regional level to ensure that we're all on the same page with how our planning methods have gone. We had a great tabletop exercise last week with FEMA on a statewide level. We had about 200 individuals there participating, making sure our entire region is aware of what's happening. But here locally, making sure our efforts are focused on that point of greatest eclipse area, which is a hot spot for folks, and that's a lot of the calls that we get are people wanting to head directly to that specific GPS coordinate of where the point of greatest eclipse has been designated. And so it's a very rural area. It's a 2-lane road to get out there. And so making sure we can keep traffic moving out there and making sure we have law enforcement officers stationed strategically on that road to make sure there are no accidents, or that they can clear those accidents as quickly as possible. We also have a small regional airport here that's able to support up to 70 reservations, and so they are over halfway full with folks that'll just be flying in on Eclipse Day, and so they're obviously working on making sure folks have reservations and they're not just being flooded that day with people thinking they can just fly in and land right there on the airport that day. A lot of our motor coach groups that we have coming to the community are via, bus transportation groups from surrounding communities. We even have a lot of international groups coming that'll be flying into the Nashville airport, which is the closest airport to us, about an hour away. But then also, we have a lot of school groups coming into that location. So while we don't have school here in Christian County on August 21st, a lot of other surrounding schools still do. So they're going to be heading here for a lot of field trip opportunities from across the Bluegrass State. We're going to be having our radio stations communicate traffic updates to all of our visitors that are coming in through our local radio stations that we have available, putting barriers around all of our high traffic areas to prevent any high speed access points, so water barriers and concrete barriers. Use of digital signage is going to be really important, so we'll have digital signs placed strategically throughout the community, as well as just yard signs that'll be up along our major high traffic areas that'll say like no parking on shoulder, and just different information for folks that'll be driving in that day. We also have emergency evacuation routes from each site. So each area, we have over 20 events taking place throughout the community, and so having emergency evacuation routes, primary, secondary, and tertiary routes from those event sites so that everybody is aware of how to properly evacuate that area. Our next committee that we have is the Health and Sanitation Committee. So this is working closely with our hospitals and preparing. They're definitely ramping up all their staffing for that weekend. They actually have also canceled all of their same-day surgeries on August 21st, and they're turning their surgical unit into an additional emergency room to be able to accommodate any of the additional needs that they might have, whether that's heat-related illnesses or any sort of emergency medical needs people might have that weekend. We also are ramping up our food efforts in the community, and so we know our restaurants won't be able to accommodate all the number of visitors we have coming in. So we actually will have about 150 additional food vendors throughout the community, and so with all of that comes the need to make sure these vendors are properly permitted. So we're bringing in additional environmentalists from across the state of Kentucky to be on site and be able to check off on all these food vendors to make sure we're preventing any foodborne illness and assist with the permitting throughout the weekend. We also have had a large request for RVs that want to come into the community. So we are creating a communal RV dump site so that people will have the opportunity to safely and sanitarily dispose of their black and gray water, so we are not contaminating any of the land. So that is being set up through our Water Environment Authority, and they're just allowing that as a free service so folks will be able to dump their tanks safely and sanitarily. We have currently about 16 different countries that we have reservations from. 37 different states and 16 different countries are coming to our community as of now. And so being aware of if there are any rise in any sort of international diseases or anything that we need to be prepared for, Zika or any sort of mosquito-borne illness, we are definitely trying to be proactive with that. So we're doing a lot of extra spraying around our outdoor venues, all of our areas that we know will be high traffic that will have mosquitoes, doing extra spraying before people get here to make sure we can cut down on that for the folks that are coming in town. We also have been working with our dialysis centers, and none of them are scheduling appointments on August 21st. Instead, they're going to typically, they would need to transport back and forth on that day, but instead they're moving that to a day prior so that they'll be able to accommodate their patients on August 20th rather than having to sit in the traffic that they anticipate on the 21st. We're also holding a blood drive here locally prior to Eclipse weekend, so the week before we'll be going above and beyond to make a call in the community for additional blood donors throughout the community. First aid stations are very important to us. Again, it's going to be very hot and it's very humid here in Kentucky, and so making sure that we have enough water and different heat-related illness prevention items that we need on hand. So we'll have first aid stations set up throughout the community. At our point of greatest eclipse, we're actually bringing in some state resources, and they'll be setting up some Zumbro tents that will kind of act as not necessarily triage facilities, but the ability to treat folks for any sort of, they'll be air conditioned, so they'll be kind of a relief from the heat. And if they need to be transported, that's a place where they can wait for that transport to take place. So those are going to be in a great location that people will be able to access them from many different event locations. And then also our sanitation is going to be taking a holiday on August 21st. They're going to be going into overdrive that weekend, but then in order to keep the garbage trucks off the road, we want to make sure that we can prevent as much additional traffic as possible. So they will be not picking up residential trash on that Monday. Moving on to our Utilities and Communication Committee. So this committee is focused on turning the lights off around our designated viewing areas. So working with our utility companies to identify and strategically plan how we're going to be turning these lights off. We won't be turning off power to the entire community just for logistical purposes, our traffic lights and any medical needs. We wanted to be very strategic thinking through that. So we actually will be turning off the lights at each individual pole that we've designated around our high traffic areas, so that we can ensure that there is as little light pollution as possible around the areas that we know are going to be highly concentrated with folks. We are working with AT&T and Verizon, and they are both setting up what's called mega cows in the northern part of our county. So these are cell on wheels, and they are temporary cell phone towers that they will be setting up. The AT&T one's already on site. Verizon will be set up on Monday, and that's going to increase and actually provide a signal out there that isn't currently available. Again, it's a rural area that is the farm that's the center point for our community, and so currently there is about 0 to 1 bar of service out there. So this is going to be a great benefit for not only our residents and visitors at that area, but also all the media folks that will be coming to that area. But we're not going to rely solely on our cell traffic, because we know that that is going to be, you know, a guessing game. You know, we don't want to rely fully on cell coverage. We want to make sure that we have radio communication and use that heavily throughout the day so that people will still be able to communicate. Another tool that we have been working diligently on is our logistics manual. And so this currently is about a 60-page manual, and we anticipate it'll grow to about 100 pages by the time it's all said and done. But this is something that we're going to put in the hands of every law enforcement officer, every event organizer, every volunteer, every individual that could potentially be asked a question on solar eclipse weekend. And, you know, with all of the different events taking place, this is going to be a manual that will have an answer to hopefully every question they could possibly get, from any important phone numbers to all of our different agencies that are partnering in this effort. When the solar eclipse takes place, you know, all of the different science-related questions they would get, when our EOC goes into effect, all of the designated viewing areas, a comprehensive timeline of every event taking place throughout the community every single day, maps of all of the event locations, their specific schedules, and what times things are happening at these different locations, our transit maps, even a language translation sheet that we've been talking with Homeland Security about. You know, if we don't have cell services and we're unable to communicate, again, with some of these individuals that are traveling internationally, this will at least be a way to recognize which language they speak so we can begin that conversation, hopefully. And moving on into behavioral health crisis. So we will have mental health responders on call, human trafficking individuals that are focused on how to deal with that situation. We have information in here from Homeland Security, from their briefings department, what to do in case of inclement weather, how to recognize heat-related illnesses, animal bites, and, you know, how to handle all of these different situations, as well as, again, all of those maps that are going to be so important to all of the individuals in our community that will possess these guides. We also have set up a solar eclipse hotline. It's actually going currently just to kind of cut down on the amount of calls that we receive to our emergency call center, you know, to cut down on people dialing 911 if they just have a solar eclipse question. We actually have set up a solar eclipse hotline that currently is manned 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, but as we move closer to eclipse weekend, that will be manned 24/7 on eclipse weekend so that folks will have the ability to get their questions answered. And obviously, if it's a non-emergency situation, we want them to be able to call that number so that they can get some assistance with their questions. So moving on to accommodations, we actually have brought all of our public parks online and have been selling them out as quickly as they go online. They tend to sell out very rapidly. So overall, we have 4 public parks that have already sold out. Our 5th one, we've just opened up the Western Kentucky State Fairgrounds. And so really this helps us not only do people like having a designated place where they know they can go see the eclipse, they know the lights are going to be turned off, they'll have access to restroom and food vendors, merchandise vendors, but this also helps us kind of coordinate our efforts and where we can direct these high numbers of individuals so that we can best be prepared for where people are going to be heading, tell them how to get into the community kind of with our designated routes so that we can ensure their paths that day, and we can hopefully get folks to where they're going the quickest way possible. Another really popular option that we have seen a lot of our residents take advantage of on our eclipseville.com website, we have the opportunity for landowners to list their property, and they can have visitors just contact them directly. So we currently have about 150 private property owners throughout Christian County that have listed their space on our website, and many of those are getting phone calls every day, and some of them have already sold out of their spaces they have available, everything from campsites to RV parking to even opening up and having home rentals available. So those have been really popular, and our residents enjoy that too, because then they're kind of getting in on all of the solar eclipse fun. Our hotels still do have limited availability. We do still have a few hotel rooms available, so those are going really quickly, but we do still have just a few rooms available. This is a map that we've created that just kind of shows the layout of where all of our events are located. So this is a map of Christian County. This star right here that you'll see is the point of greatest eclipse that I was mentioning. So this is where we will have like all of our media outlets. So we'll have NASA broadcasting live, Time Magazine, CNN, the Associated Press, the Wall Street Journal, all of these media outlets that will be on site here. So we're setting up, we've dropped additional power poles there so that they'll all have access to power. That's where our cell communication towers will be, so that those folks will be able to have access to all of that, as well as data out there. And then you'll see, I mean, our county is very expansive, so these events are spread throughout the community, and this is helpful for, you know, we've kind of broken this down by how many guests we anticipate at each location and what peak times we anticipate that, to kind of help our law enforcement folks know when these areas are going to be experiencing higher traffic and how that's all spread. This black line is the path of totality as it goes through our community, and these telescopes are our designated city viewing areas. So again, this is a map that we are including in our Eclipse guide that we're printing currently, and they will be distributed to all of our visitors and our residents that come into town. And then on this side, this is our traffic map here that we're working with HPD to create. And so there's arrows on there. They're kind of small, you can't really see them, but it shows how we're directing people into all these different quadrants of the community and how we want the traffic to flow. So that's how we're going to kind of be sending out the verbiage for where people are going, and if they need to get around that way. So moving on to some of the fun stuff. So a lot of our marketing has been centered around renaming ourselves Eclipseville, which has been really fun. We've had a lot of excitement around the community. We have had this beautiful mural that was painted by a local artist on a prominent building in our community. So that's been really fun. That's going to be a hot spot for folks to take pictures while they're in town and really get a great welcome and experience as they come into the community. We have these wonderful signs right here on the far left that say viewing site, and it has our solar eclipse logo on there. And so you'll see kind of down here behind it, that's one of our public parks that is one of our designated viewing areas. And so these signs are set up throughout the community, designating our viewing sites. And also when you come into the community, it says welcome to Solar Eclipse Hopkinsville 2017. So that is just a great way that we want people to see that and instantly feel welcome to the community. We also have these great decals that we've given to all of our businesses, and we've dropped off business tips for them so they are aware of different ways that they can, have their business tie in with the eclipse, whether it's offering specials or extending their hours, encouraging people to check in on social media, having some sort of promotion that weekend. So really just trying to provide all of our businesses information about how to best take advantage and prepare for all these visitors coming in town. You know, we are letting all of our residents know about how to prepare for this as well. We have included a mailer in all of the electric bills that have gone out to all of our community residents, and we're getting ready to do a mailer directly to each individual household that will give tips on how to stay safe, what they need to do to prepare, go to the grocery store, go to the ATM, get their gas, all of these things before Thursday, so that when all these visitors come in, they won't have to be sitting in line or waiting for those things. So those have been really well received. We've held a lot of community forums that have been both educational on the science end, but also on the plans and preparations that we're making, just so that our residents can be as informed as possible. At our last one, we actually incorporated a marketplace, so all of our local vendors that have created solar eclipse merchandise could get in on the action and get those souvenirs out there and start to show off what they had made. We've also been working with a company called Palaroo on this great app, and it's wonderful. It shows, as you can see on the phone here, all of the different icons for the different events taking place throughout the community. As I mentioned, we have over 20 events. So everything from a downtown Summer Salute music festival that will have live music for 3 days, to a Comic-Con event, to craft distilleries that are having, distillery tours and live music, and so many different opportunities for people. We even have a scuba diving experience during the eclipse. So really, really unique things that really highlight our community and showcase all that we have to offer. Overall, we anticipate that this will generate about $30 million in economic impact for Hopkinsville, which is such a significant amount when you think about it and what this means for our community. And so this is essentially like we're hosting the Super Bowl here without having to build the stadium here in Hopkinsville for our community. So we're very excited about that and all of the plans that are coming together and really just looking forward to August 21st and the weekend leading up to it. So those are our plans here.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the view into Eclipseville and everything that you're doing. We're going to keep going with Michael Zeiler of GreatAmericanEclipse.com. We are going to keep going as planned. Our speakers have been fantastic in presenting all their information, but we want to get everything that Michael and Dave have to say as well. So we're going to keep moving along as planned. And a reminder that if you have to drop off for any reason, this webinar is being recorded and will be distributed. So Michael, I will turn it over to you here now.
Thank you, Adam. Let's see, by way of introduction, I'm Michael Zeiler, and I have a dual role here. I'm a technical writer and analyst for Esri, the GIS company. And in my free time, I also operate the leading Eclipse website, greatamericaneclipse.com. So I do a lot of these, I apply my professional skills with my personal interests. I've been chasing solar eclipses since 1991 and have developed a lot of gorgeous maps and animations on my website. So here's a quick look at my website, and two of the items on the front page of the website I'm highlighting as of special interest for this audience. The first item, Eclipse visitors and traffic, is an analysis that I did where I applied GIS methodology to take the census data and the U.S. road network and take my stab at my estimates for eclipse visitations. This has received a lot of attention recently with write-ups in 538.com and the Washington Post and some other outlets that are going to be coming up soon. The second item that I highlight here, where it says Launch App, Tour the Great American Eclipse, this is an ArcGIS web app that is freely available. It works on every platform from the desktop to the smartphones. And there's some data in here I think that will be useful from a transportation perspective. So I would urge anyone to look at that app as well. As you zoom in, more and more information becomes available, including the most direct routes from a variety of locations throughout the country to the eclipse path. Okay, so early this year, I began by doing some analysis, and I wondered how many people were inside the path of the eclipse and how many people were in various proximities to the eclipse. These maps you can see in more detail on that first web page that I highlighted on the front page. And the short answer is 12.2 million people already live within the path of the eclipse. And then the numbers are rather striking. 47 million people are only live within 100 miles of the eclipse path. So you can start to gather the potential for huge visitation to the eclipse. And then jumping ahead to 400 miles within the total solar eclipse, over half the nation lives within that span. So one of the reasons we call this the Great American Eclipse is because it is so accessible to so many tens of millions of Americans. Total solar eclipses happen somewhere on Earth every 16 to 18 months on average, but it's somewhat rare for them to occur in a heavily populated area such as the United States. Another interesting fact about this eclipse is that it is the first eclipse in the history of this nation to exclusively visit the United States and no other country. So that's an interesting fact about the eclipse. Next, I decided to do a bit more analysis. And the next step in my analysis, I computed what are called drive time areas to the path of totality. And while this was fairly compute intensive to generate, it's a straightforward use of the ArcGIS software. So it just briefly how this works is there's a map layer within ArcGIS Online which models the national road network. In fact, it's every single road segment in the country. So you can see why this was compute intensive. And so then I ran an area called Create Drive Time Area. And this assigns average speeds based on the road classes. So interstates obviously are more quicker than secondary roads and so forth. So after several days of number crunching, I came up with this map, and so you can see how far away people are away from the path. So I decided to take this analysis a little bit further, and I introduced the concept of a drive shed. A drive shed is analogous to a watershed, except instead of drops of water accumulating into a basin, cars are accumulating from various destinations, and they naturally converge upon the interstate system. And so these drive sheds that I've computed show how everything else being equal, how people will naturally converge upon the path of totality. The massive drive shed that you see here is near Santee, South Carolina. So that's definitely a place to avoid. That is the closest destination for 74.6 million people. And I show the top 6 drive sheds on this slide. And there's more of these graphics where I go through the top drive sheds in the country later on. This is a summary of the drive shed maps. And so each of the major drive sheds I've color coded so you can see the natural flow patterns. Of course, this is making the perhaps simplifying assumption that people will drive to the closest destination. And there's some other factors that will compel people to drive to other locations, but this was a quantifiable problem, and so I applied GIS analysis to compute these facilities. One other thing I'd like to say while I'm showing these maps is that you can find them on that web page I highlighted, but if you need high resolution of these maps, drop me an email at greatamericaneclipse@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to send you a Dropbox link to higher resolution images of these drive sheds and other analysis that I've done. Okay, so now I took this analysis, and I was so bold as to take a stab at estimating eclipse visitation. It's one thing to say that a certain point inside the eclipse path is the closest destination for 74 million people, as I readily computed for Santee, South Carolina. It's another leap of faith to start making an actual estimate of how many people would actually go and travel to the point of eclipse. So I began this analysis with a little thought experiment, and on the map on the left side, you see Denver and its proximity to the center line of the eclipse, and it's 202 miles from Denver to the center line of the eclipse. And so I thought about what is the likelihood that an average person in Denver would drive 200 miles to see the most beautiful sight of their life. The motivating factors, of course, are that this is something very special to see, and it's going to draw people who are interested in natural beauty. It's an easy day trip to go 200 miles, assuming the traffic is good, of course, which it won't be. And the last motivating factor is I think a lot of people are going to get excited about this event from hearing about it on social media and broadcast media. The inhibiting factors are, frankly, a lot of people are indifferent or ignorant of the eclipse. And the reality bites. Some people have to go to work or school and can't get out. We can't discount that some people have limited financial means, and for them to spend gas money to drive 400 miles, they may not eat that day. And lastly, some people are going to hear a lot of scare stories in the media of traffic jams, and will stay home because of that. So weighing all these factors, and I spoke to a few people about this too, I came up with an estimate of between 0.5% and 2% of the population of Denver would drive 200 miles away. And naturally, that likelihood decays the further away you get. For example, Albuquerque would be considerably less because of the distance and so forth. So I have that estimate for each doubling of the distance. So I came up with this. This is a summary of my results. Applying the method that I just described against all of this GIS data that I've got, and this took a lot more number crunching. I came up with a number of, in addition to the 12 million people already inside the path of totality, I estimate between 1.5 million people and 7.4 million people will travel to the path of totality. That's a rather large estimate, but if I had to reconsider this estimate, I would tend towards the high end of this, because this is the first social media eclipse, and I think it could really have a massive viral impact, especially on the communities that are within a day's drive. If you go on my webpage, you'll find some more detailed maps. Here I break it down for South Carolina. I show all of the drive sheds that converge upon South Carolina, and I give my estimate between roughly 500,000 and 2 million people will converge on South Carolina. This is Tennessee, another major impacted state for the eclipse. Between 360,000 and 1.4 million is my estimate using my method. This is Idaho. Idaho surprisingly could get a rather large impact because it is the closest destination for major population centers in Southern California, Arizona, and Utah. And this is a summary of what I estimate the visitation to be. The top line are the population that's closest to the path of totality. Of course, this isn't going to be anywhere close to the number of people who actually travel there, of course, but this is saying this state is the closest destination for this many people. On the bottom is where I apply my method and come up with the numbers. South Carolina obviously is going to be the biggest draw, because it's going to draw all the people along the eastern seaboard from Maine to Florida. The states that come after that are Tennessee, Missouri, and Oregon. And you can revisit these statistics on my website later. I also, since I had the data, I prepared a series of detailed maps that show, using my method, how many visitors will come to each highway intersection with the center line of the eclipse. Now, there's a lot of caveats about the method and imponderables. The first one is the big variable will be weather. If the weather forecast is poor in one area, obviously people will go to another location. And I am explicit that my analysis does not take into account local festivals like Moonstock, places of great scenery, areas where somebody may be more or less likely to make the trip because of their social and economic status, internal air travel, and international air travel. These are imponderables, so I didn't try to quantify these at all. And I said earlier, I think that the biggest unknown is the impact of social media, and I suspect the impact will be huge. Given all of this, I'd like to reiterate that my analysis should be treated as a first-order approximation and not as hard numbers, although I think the analysis is useful for predicting rough numbers overall, and also for highlighting the areas that will have predictable large traffic, and that local authorities should do well to plan for. And my website, Great American Eclipse, receives a lot of visits on the web, and so the message that I've been crafting and hammering, and I think this is in line with some of the other messages people have spoken about, is get off the road before the eclipse begins, for obvious reasons. And for the public to avoid the predictable congestion points. That's one use of the maps that I've prepared. And arrive at your destination at least a day before. Be completely self-sufficient, because you can't rely upon restaurants or supermarkets having sufficient food, and keep your gas tank topped up. And lastly, to stay a bit afterwards until the traffic clears. Perhaps if you have a good cell signal, watch traffic on a Google Maps or Waze or something similar, and just wait until the traffic is cleared sufficiently for you to begin your trip home. And with that, I hand it over to my friend Dave Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. We have one more presentation left from Dave Jones on all the great outreach that Storm Center is doing. Michael, really appreciate that presentation. It's always great to hear what you've been up to, and the fantastic estimates that you're putting together. Because we're partially work with FHW and AASHTO, we just have to remind you that these are Michael's independent estimates, which we love sharing and featuring, but that they are Michael's, and we appreciate you sharing them with us. We're going to keep going here. I know we're past our time, but we have lots of good information that we're sharing, and we want to hear from Dave about the outreach work. So Dave, I will turn it over to you here. And everybody, keep your questions coming in there. If we don't get to them now, we will certainly try to respond to them via email within the next week or so. And Dave, you might be muted still.
I'm here now. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can. Thank you so
Hello?
much.
Great. Okay.
Yeah,
Here
we
we
can
go.
hear you.
So I'll try to keep this quick. But what Storm Center Communications is doing is building upon the relationship that we have with TV stations across the country, particularly broadcast meteorologists. We've been awarded a contract from NASA to work with NASA and broadcast meteorologists around the country to deliver some of the science to stations around the country. And so the first graphic that I have is yesterday we held a live webinar on the eclipse from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center that was focused on engaging the broadcast meteorologists in understanding the key issues related to communicating impacts of the eclipse. And we heard a lot of those already today in this webinar. These are the folks that that participated in the eclipse. Dr. Nikki Weil, who's a solar scientist from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. We had Martin Knopp from the Federal Highway Administration. He spoke about expected impacts. Matt, who we heard earlier from the state of Missouri, he joined us through that video that he mentioned earlier that he produced for us, and we made that video available to all TV stations around the country. So many of them are taking Matt's advice, and they're producing their own videos in a similar way that Matt produced his. So Matt, you're a role model for some of the TV stations around the country, and you might pop up in some of those stations as well if some of them don't want to do it themselves and use what you're doing in Missouri. So that's great. Also, John Murphy joined us, who's the Chief Operating Officer of NOAA's National Weather Service. John talked about the Weather Service's key mission of supplying impact-based decision support services to emergency managers and core partners, and how they're standing by with their 122 forecast offices across the country to support any type of severe weather that might pop up impacting people, especially those that are gathered in the path of totality. And then we had Dr. Madhulika Guthakurta from NASA. She's the lead scientist. She is the one that's providing support to Storm Center to cover the eclipse and get content to TV stations around the country. So, it was an exciting webinar and something that really engaged a lot of meteorologists around the country, and so that's great. So we talked about a couple of things, story ideas. Obviously, we've talked a lot about that. Michael's terrific visualizations and you know, some of the estimates that he made are certainly turning some heads. So traffic impacts across markets. Some towns won't be able to handle the volume. We've heard that some are treating it as like it were a hurricane evacuation, although they've never had one in some of their areas, which span across the country. Are schools closing early or not? And we heard Brooke talk about in Hopkinsville that they have decided not only to close schools on Eclipse Day, but the day after. So you have big cities like Atlanta that are will be in session, and they're thinking about closing schools maybe an hour early or 2 hours early, and just to add to the congestion with school buses of everybody driving from 99% totality to just a little further to the north to get into the path of totality. So that may not be a good decision for Atlanta to even have school on that day because they're so close to totality. So some of those meteorologists and TV stations are going to be engaging their viewers and talking about it, and frankly reaching out to you, reaching out to authorities at the state level to see what your plans are, and hopefully these plans are being solidified that in the path of totality schools probably shouldn't be open because it's just going to add to a lot of congestion. Solar power plants, what are the diminished generation capabilities? Do they have plans to ramp up other forms of power generation, especially power plants that are in the path of totality? However, this is an eclipse that impacts the entire U.S. So even though we have that narrow swath of totality, which is 70 miles wide, every part of North America will see this eclipse. And if you have the eclipse glasses, you will see at least a partial portion of the sun obscured by the moon, even in Alaska and Hawaii. So there is a diminished solar input to the United States, which may impact solar generation. Animals will respond to darkness. We have a meteorologist in South Carolina who's stationing putting cameras at the zoo, and he's going to be live at the zoo because a lot of the animals will be going into a certain mode when it gets dark. What if there's severe weather in your market or near the path of totality? How will the stations warn them? You know, we have a lot of people that have apps on their phones. Some of the apps, they've put in their home location, and when they go to the new location, they may not get warned. Other apps and the emergency activation system, you know, hopefully works by alerting people with their current location. So if there's any severe weather out and the National Weather Service issues warnings, we have a real vulnerability problem with hundreds of thousands of people outside, and then how do they get warned? And once they're warned, what do they do is the big thing. I mean, in stadiums, they can go inside the stadium, but when you have hundreds of thousands of people outside, what do they do? Other ideas we talked to them about is what is their Eclipse Day plan for positioning crews at the TV station for getting coverage? What is the fuel situation like? Is there adequate fuel supply in some of these towns and cities to handle everyone? The feeling in many small towns is no, and that will be a problem. That's why the advice is to come totally fueled up. But if you're driving 100, 200, 300, 400 miles, people may arrive, get to the path of totality, and be out of gas or need to fill up. Is there adequate food available for the 3-day events? And also, Brooke talked about that in Hopkinsville as well, with so many people heading there. Have those markets around the country looked into this? And this is probably going to be some questions that they start asking. Those people traveling to the Path of Totality should have enough food and water for 3 days in their car. That's some advice that we're hearing from some health officials. That are saying, look, if you're stocking up in your car, if local markets run out of food, that could be a problem as well. So we had discussions from Nikki Vial from NASA, Martin Knopp, Matt Hebert, John Murphy, and then we talked about a new technology that Storm Center developed under federal government funding, which enables the sharing of geospatial data in real time across various common operating pictures, across various platforms and technologies. So we're going to be launching, this is an example of the GeoCollaborate dashboard that we're going to be launching with TV stations around the country. This technology brings in all sorts of geospatial data layers. So we'll be working with Michael at Great American Eclipse to get some of his data layers involved in here, so TV stations can look at it in real time. This particular image is a visible satellite picture that was taken yesterday morning with the Path of Totality superimposed. So we'll be able to tell in real time exactly where it's cloudy along the Path of Totality, where it's clear, and we can add other layers as well, such as satellite imagery. This is an example of what an eclipse looks like from 22,000 miles up from the from a geostationary satellite. This is an eclipse that happened last year, I believe, or the year before. You see China in the northwest side there, but the dark shadow is an eclipse on the Earth. So we'll be using GeoCollaborate, and this is one of Michael's layers for major roads leading to the Path of Totality. With the eclipse totality path superimposed and the towns that are in there. And so we can, with GeoCollaborate, can zoom in and show other forms of data sets. I highlighted here Hopkinsville here with some of the estimates for the totality. And this is combining NOAA satellite data with some of Michael's data sets with Great American Eclipse. So we can bring in any sort of geospatial layers and share this in real time across the entire country, share it within cities and states, and that's what GeoCollaborate was designed to do, is to put people on the same map at the same time on any device, so real-time data sharing and collaboration can improve situational awareness and decision-making. So you can also change the base map too to highlight, radar data. This is an example of radar about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, with the eclipse superimposed, so you can see the impacts of any lines of showers or thunderstorms there. So we're also going to have a satellite truck stationed in Salem, Oregon, where we're going to be televising the eclipse in real time and pumping it up to TV stations around the country. We're also going to be getting crowd reaction. We're going to be getting interviewing scientists on August 20th, the day before, and we're going to be interviewing these folks on the screen here. Even Don Pettit, who's a retired NASA astronaut, is going to be available for TV stations to interview him live from Salem. And so, as you know, the eclipse comes ashore. The shadow will be moving about 2,000 miles per hour as it comes ashore and moving across the country and taking about 90 minutes to do so. But as the big topic of this webinar has been, there are going to be great impacts well before and well after the eclipse, particularly if people stagger their arrival to see the eclipse, and then once the eclipse is over, everyone leaves at relatively the same time. This is going to cause a major problem, and with GeoCollaborate, we're going to be able to monitor all the environmental conditions, and if any states actually declare states of emergency, or any states issue some sort of travel waiver or ban, like of tractor-trailer semis or anything like that, for a period of time going through a certain part of the state. We can also put those waivers up on the All Hazards Consortium GeoCollaborate site, which they'll be using to monitor events as well. So, so that's really, you know, in a nutshell, what Storm Center is going to be doing. Our job is to communicate the eclipse, to put the media in touch with you guys, to make sure that the local markets are getting informed. And we have a number of private communication capabilities set up with TV stations around the country, and they're all looking forward to getting our footage and B-roll and interviews and contacts. So I would just ask everybody on the webinar who has not really been contacted by your local station, send me an email to dave@stormcenter.com, and I will make sure that the stations in those markets get your information so they can begin to do these stories, because we're not too far away from the eclipse, and stations are really going to be looking for resources that they can talk about the eclipse and give their viewers great information. And so the last thing that I wanted to do real quick is just to drag, let's see, let me go over from, here it is right here. I'm going to go full screen on this with GeoCollaborate. This is live GeoCollaborate. So you can see the real-time clouds with the path of totality overlaid. So we're merging 3 different data sets from 3 different sources in one collaborative common operating picture, and we can zoom in. Now, this satellite imagery is from the new NOAA satellite called GOES-16. GOES-16 is the most advanced weather satellite that's in orbit around the Earth right now, in geostationary orbit, so it's the only one up there for the U.S. that has this kind of capability. But NOAA is going to be turning GOES-16 into super rapid scan mode during the eclipse. What does that mean? It means that we'll be getting imagery every minute, and it will be updating live within GeoCollaborate. So we'll be able to see the visible satellite image and where the clouds are and where it's clear, updated every minute. And not only that, we'll be able to see the shadow of the moon on the Earth in real time. And so I can zoom out here a little bit more, and the satellite image will extend out to cover the entire U.S. And so this will be live. This will be quite exciting to see the shadow of the moon moving across the path of totality and impacting the whole country in real time. So this is something that the TV stations can put on the air and show their viewers as the eclipse is happening. So I'll stop there and open it up for any questions for those who are able to stick around. And I appreciate everybody participating in the webinar. It's great information. So that's it for me.
Dave, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I don't see any questions that have come in immediately. I'll give folks just a second if there's anything, any questions to be asked. I want to thank Dave and Michael again, along with Brooke Young, Matt Ebert, and Tom Cordy for a fantastic overview of what's going on around the eclipse. As you can see, there's been quite a bit of work that's been put in from the state level, from the independent and mapping side, and people like Michael, who are doing quite a bit of work, to all the great work that Storm Center Communications continues to do around it. So we're thankful to all of them for sharing the work that they're doing and capturing it here. It looks like there's no specific questions that have come in, so I think we'll go ahead and conclude here. Again, we will send along the presentations and a recording of this for you to share with your colleagues and anybody who might be interested. And thank you so much again to all of you who joined us and to all the presenters. And we'll talk to you soon.
Great, thank you.